Hey YouTubers, it's Now Week 19 here with my review for episode 17 of The Flash, Tricksters. So much happened in this episode, so I'm gonna get down to my recap right away. Barry and Joe go after terrorist Axel Walker, who goes by the name Trickster. Axel sets a diversion for The Flash so that he can break James Jesse, the original Trickster from 20 years prior, out of prison. James and Axel attempt to extort wealthy patrons by poisoning them and ransoming the antidote. When The Flash arrives, the Tricksters fit him with a bomb that will detonate if he stops moving. Dr. Wells coaches Barry on how to vibrate his molecules so that he can phase through objects, which removes the bomb. Afterward, Barry provides an antidote to all the patrons before capturing the Tricksters. Later, the Flash reveals his identity to Eddie so that he can keep Iris from looking into Dr. Wells for her own protection, as Barry realizes that Wells is the Reverse Flash. In the flashbacks, after failing to kill Barry as a child, the Reverse Flash escapes down the road only to lose his speed. Gideon informs him that traveling back in time has drained his powers. He removes his mask to reveal the real Eobard Thawne. Eobard stalks Dr. Wells and reveals that the particle accelerator is not built until the year 2020. He then appears to kill Wells and steal his appearance and identity so that he can develop the particle accelerator sooner and return to his timeline. So, overall, I am giving this episode a 10. It was a really fun and enjoyable episode, mostly because of Mark Hamill. If you don't know, Mark Hamill played the Trickster in the 1990s Flash series. Think of this episode as a reunion episode for John Wesley Shipp, who played the Barry Allen Flash, and Mark Hamill. Aside from that, this episode really focused on Barry dealing with the idea that Wells could be the Reverse Flash. This really took an emotional toll to Barry in this episode. Dr. Wells has saved his life so many times, and he has even helped him with his missions on protecting the city, and now he could possibly be the man who killed his mom and had his father sit in prison for the crime. Joe, playing the wise man of the show, told Barry that he should be patient as Wells has been, and be grateful that Wells is helping them even though he may or may not be the Reverse Flash. And speaking of Wells, we discovered that Harrison Wells isn't an alias for Eobard Thawne. Harrison Wells was a real person. So what happened is that Eobard Thawne went back in time to kill Barry as a kid. He failed and was trapped in the past. He caused the car accident that resulted in Tess Morgan dying. Thawne confronted Wells and used some future tech that allowed Thawne to look like Wells. The device killed Wells, and since then Thawne has been masquerading as Harrison Wells. Thawne explained that the particle accelerator that Wells and Tess were going to build was going to be built in the year 2020. However, Thawne, as well, sped up the process so that Barry could become the Flash sooner so that he can go back to his time. This also explains why Cisco couldn't identify the blood sample of Wells back in episode 13. It wasn't Wells' DNA, it was Eobard Thawne's DNA. The actor who played the real Eobard Thawne, his name is Matt Lescher. He said that he will return again, so it could be possible that Thawne loses his Wells identity and just looks like himself for the remaining episodes of the season. It sucks that we'll lose Tom Cavanaugh because he's really killed it as the villain this season. So overall, this episode was really amazing. Out of all the episodes in the season so far, this episode makes it within the number 5 through number 1 best episodes. So, now onto Easter eggs. There are so many Easter eggs in this episode. As I said before, Mark Hamill reprised his role as the Trickster from the original Flash series in the 90s. His performance was outstanding. I've never seen the 90s Flash series, but judging by Hamill's performance in this episode, I bet his performance back in the 90s was no different. Mark Hamill has been known to voice the Joker in many Batman TV series and in the Arkham video games, so I like to think that Mark Hamill's Trickster in this episode was like his way of integrating the Joker in this Flash villain. It's funny how Hamill played one of the most iconic villains in film, and then he goes on to voice the most iconic villain in the comic books. Mark Hamill even made a Star Wars reference in this episode. It turns out that Axel Walker was his son, so he pulled a Darth Vader and told him the "I am your father" line. In the comics, James Jesse isn't Axel Walker's father. Axel Walker stole all of James Jesse's gadgets and called himself the new Trickster. James beat Axel Walker up and told him to never become the Trickster again. At some point, James would die and Walker would take the role as the Trickster again. They sort of played with that on the show prior to the big reveal that Axel was James' son. Axel stole James's gadgets and James was upset that Axel was ruining his legacy. They stayed true to the Axel Walker Trickster in terms of appearance. His costume design looked exactly the same from the comics, that punk rock look. I've said that this episode was a reunion episode for Mark Hamill and John Wesley Shipp. Another character from the 90s Flash show showed up as well. The mayor in this episode was on the Flash series in the 90s, however in the 90s he played a cop rather than a mayor. Matt Lester's Eobard Thawne looks more like the Eobard Thawne from the comics. One of the complaints I had for Tom Cavanaugh when the series started is that he didn't look like the Eobard Thawne from the comics, but his performance was just so amazing that the appearance hardly mattered. Grant Gustin's Barry Allen doesn't look like the Barry Allen from the comics either. The Barry in the comics has blonde hair, however Grant Gustin has black hair. I guess this goes to show that you can't judge a book by its cover. The Flash we saw in the flashbacks had a white emblem on his suit. This resembles the Flash suit from the comics. I've heard that there are going to be some costume changes along the way at some point. The switch from the red emblem to the white emblem is one of them. There's probably going to be some small changes to the suit in the future. I don't expect them to alter the color of the suit. Bright colors just look weird on television, so the dark red Flash suit that we have right now looks fine. I'd say the white emblem Flash logo could show up before the season ends because Barry is going to have to go back in time and save his younger self. That could be featured as the season finale for this season, or that could be featured in a later season. But since we've been focusing on Barry's mom's murder so much in this season, I feel like they're going to resolve that conflict there. The street Barry was heading to find the bomb the Trickster had was on the 52nd Street, so that's just a reference to the new 52. So because so much happened in this episode, I'm going to do top 10 moments instead of top 5. So starting with number 10, meet the Axel Walker Trickster. Number 9, meet the real Harrison Wells. It was really great seeing the real Harrison Wells being a bit more joyful and comical. It just shows the difference from the Wells before he died and Thawne masquerading as Wells. Number 8, Barry reveals to his dad that he's the Flash. In episode 12, it seemed that Barry's dad knew that Barry was the Flash. It was good that we got this moment because it confirms that Barry's dad knows that his son is the Flash. Number 7, Barry versus the Reverse Flash in the flashbacks. Number 6, Barry reveals to Eddie that he's the Flash. This is probably going to push Eddie to become a villain now. In last week's episode, Eddie had punched Barry for trying to get Iris to himself, but they resolved that conflict. In the comics, the Hunter Zolomon Reverse Flash had a hate for the Wally West Flash because he refused to go back in time and stop Gorilla Grodd from paralyzing him. So now that Eddie knows Barry's the Flash, it could be possible that they're going in that route of the Hunter Zolomon Reverse Flash rather than Cobalt Blue. I've said this in my last 2 videos that I'm okay with whatever character Eddie turns out to be, so long as it turns out to be a villain. Number 5, Barry vibrates his molecules. This is one of the abilities that I've wanted to see Barry use in the series. Phasing through objects is one of the coolest things the Flash can do in the comics, so it was really great seeing it play out on screen. Number 4, meet the real Eobard Thawne. Number 3, Eobard Thawne steals Harrison Wells' identity. Number 2, meet the James Jesse Trickster. And my number 1 moment, Axel, I am your father. So, here's my question for you guys. What did you think of this episode? Leave your thoughts down in the comments below, and remember to subscribe for more reviews on The Flash. Subscribe to my other channel, Jedi Knight 450, and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr for updates on The Flash, Arrow, and more. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.